Our
Yep.
next speaker is Amir. Amir, is that the way it's pronounced?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. So Amir is the Vice President of Sales at Rich Cloud, and he, in fact, is a seasoned tech industry executive, and he has worked with, not just uh, growth stage companies or million-dollar companies. He's also worked with startups. He's actually taken a startup from zero revenue to a multi-billion dollar company. He's recruited teams from across the world. He's developed business across Europe and Asia. Amir, welcome to Open Mic, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. I hope my screen is visible for everybody, the presentation.
Yes, it is. We're able to hear you as well.
Great. So thank you for the introduction, and I'll just move forward with the presentation. So a little bit of background and history, because Ridge is a cloud company, and we'll get to that. But first, let's talk a little bit about the history. So in the past few decades, there's been a very distinct trend of moving first from on-prem, where people just had data centers, local data centers, or computer rooms with all the facilities local, then moved slowly and surely into multiple data centers that have numbers have been growing significantly over the past few decades. Now there are literally tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of data centers across the world. So that was the first trend that we all know of that happened in the past few centuries. Then in 2008, I believe, Amazon or AWS launched its first service called S3, which really started the whole cloud business and put it into a different level of providing services. And that was another big trend that happened and is still happening. Many customers have not just moved from on-prem to off-prem or co-location, but also have been starting to use more and more of these services. And then more companies, of course, like Azure and GCP, which are the big three, and many, many other companies have started providing these services. And that was a huge trend. What we've identified, not just us, but also, as you can see, this is a well-known trend identified by IDC and Gartner that you can see here on the slide, is that there's a new trend that's been happening in the past few years, and that's that organizations do not just need cloud services, but they need cloud deployment that also take into regard the edge, location-based. That's something very, very important to see for multiple problems that I'll cover. So if we're looking at these challenges that we've identified, for many customers, there is a latency challenge. Putting your data in the cloud may not just be good enough, because if you want to be close to your end users, and there's a limited number of locations that all of the big three have across the world, and you may encounter some latency problems because physically data resides, or the server resides, in a very remote from the end customers. So that's a latency challenge a lot of the customers are experiencing. Another challenge is data sovereignty, where many countries have rules and regulations about where data needs to be at in terms of the laws, in terms of regulations. So that's another problem, and you cannot just put your data in a remote cloud in a different country or a different location because of that reason. So customers have a problem now because they really want to run locally for these reasons that we just mentioned, but also their cloud provider or their data center that is near the location where they want to be is just not equipped to run the services that they want to have, such as the services that the big cloud providers provide right now. So they have kind of a costly trade-off between just doing it themselves in an old-fashioned on-prem, off-prem, where you put your own data servers, your own network, your own storage, and just do everything yourself. That's very expensive as an initial investment. And option number two is to run slowly with slow response times. And it will also cost you a lot of money long-term because you're going to lose customers, and obviously that's a not-preferred option. So these are the challenges that we've identified. Now let's pause a little bit and talk about Ridge. We're a 3-year-old startup. We were founded just at the beginning of 2018, so we're now really celebrating 30 years next month. We have offices in Boston, and we're doing the R&D in Israel and Tel Aviv. Our CEO is Jonathan Seelig, who was the co-founder of Akamai. It's a very, very well-known company, obviously. Our chairman is somebody called Iggy Levy Weiss. He's not just our chairman, but he's also a general partner of our big investor, NFX. So we were founded by a few leading VCs. One of them is NFX itself, and others are Mayfield, Vale Ventures, Slow Ventures, and others. So what we are essentially is a cloud provider, but unlike typical cloud providers, such as the big three or anybody else, we do not own the underlying infrastructure. What we provide is just the cloud services, but we reside physically on top of existing data centers with their own infrastructure, their own servers, their own network infrastructure, their own storage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we integrate with these data centers, and we provide these services on top of what they have right now. We are currently partnering with about 100 different partners across the world, so we have huge coverage. If you just compare that even to the big threes, they have roughly 20 locations from a geography point of view worldwide. So our coverage is already much, much better, and we really just launched and started to sell our services with a single cloud look and feel, single UI, single API for all of these different locations with all of our different underlying partners. So with Ridge, what you get really is the best of both worlds, because you get the full cloud experience with the services that we provide, and we'll talk about what type of services we provide as a cloud provider, but also enjoy, of course, the low latency and data sovereignty and all the things around that that you get from operating locally with a local data center. So the benefits of using or running workloads on Ridge for end customers is, of course, first, the hyper low latency that you get from running locally with the improved user experience around that. And the second big thing that you get is, of course, the agility coming from doing that on the cloud. So again, best of both worlds. But I think the third one is not less important. For companies want to deploy globally, not just in a specific location, but they have multiple locations where they want to deploy. Now with Ridge, you have the option to choose a location. Just choose it, put your finger on the map, wherever you want to be. If we're not there right now with a partner, we can do that very, very quickly, because our offering to our partners is also very, very attractive. So it's very easy to expand from our experience, and it's very easy for an end user to just pick a location and deploy wherever they want. So in terms of our architecture, you get a Ridge console, which is a cloud console, very modern one. You get to choose what type of service you want to get, and we currently offer very specific services, and I'll get to that. There's something called an allocation, Ridge allocation engine, where the end user can just say, what is the criteria for their choosing the location where they want to be, and there are different decisions to be made around that, and I'll talk about that as well. Then that allocation engine chooses a location, and the deployment is very easy, and it's done seamlessly and automatically on any of the underlying data centers that we have, regardless of the infrastructure that they use, because we know how to integrate. It doesn't matter to us if it's OpenStack based, VMware based, or Equinix based, whatever. We just know how to do it with a single UI for the end customers. So in terms of our current offering and managed services, we currently do three things. What we call RCS, which is a Ridge container service. So if any customer wants to run any container workload, which is sort of a serverless, if you don't know what that is, a service, but it's more than just basic serverless, because containers contain more information as a package. So we provide the full container service, fully managed container service. The other one, which I think is more attractive even, is the Ridge Kubernetes service, fully managed Kubernetes service. So wherever you are in the world running Kubernetes right now, if you want to move, it's super easy doing that with Kubernetes. And we provide a full managed solution. So we support all the clusters, connections, but also the servers and the networking and everything around the simple Kubernetes. And the third one, which we're just launching right now, is our storage service, which is fully compatible with S3 coming from AWS. So any customer that has that need. Next year, we're planning on a series of services that we will be launching. There's a partial list here around databases, load balancers, and also infrastructure as a service. We're planning many, many more. It really depends on the kind of feedback that we get from customers, and we'll prioritize accordingly. So the allocation engine that I mentioned. So as you know, anybody that has any aspirations to run on certain locations, but they may have preferences in regards to data sovereignty, in terms of price, in terms of type of resources that they need, what they can put all these requests in our allocation engine, which is again very simplified UI, and they get a list of possible data centers or possible locations where they can put their actual data and actual compute at the end, where's the end game. So, or they can just choose they want a very specific data center that they know and love in a certain place. But again, this allocation engine is just something that can help them make a decision for them on where they want to deploy. In terms of security, the system is built completely multi-tenancy from ground up with full isolation between different customers. It includes identity and access management, so only authorized users can actually perform actions. We integrate, as I said, with all the well-proven hypervisor technologies, so we're up to that level of standard of security that you may expect. User data is 100% private and persistent, and it is fully compliant with all the data center regulations. And we're also certified as ISO 27001 for whoever needs that. In terms of reporting, so our system actually is monitoring the activity on a second granularity basis. So in terms of the reporting itself, it could be up to a daily or monthly reporting, depending on the actual requests coming from the customer. It's already built into our system. It's completely transparent, and everything, every different consumption can be viewed with a user view for any type of resource that we charge on, which is very typical, RAM, VRAM, or storage, gigabytes, usage, or number of CPUs and type of CPUs. So it's very, very standard, and everything is, as I said, completely transparent. In terms of different workloads, we basically fit every workload out there, because everything that runs on containers, Kubernetes, and every developer right now in 2020 coming into 2021 knows that that's not the future. It's what's present right now. Everybody's using that or planning on using that. I think a recent survey that I read was Gartner said that 75% of all developing organizations are going to be using Kubernetes until 2025. So I mean, even if that's a little bit far off, still, it's a huge number. So if customers are not doing that right now, they will be doing that very, very soon. Practically every workload fits into Kubernetes environment, so that's why we also fit perfectly. In terms of support service, anything that, ranging from next business day to.
We're running out of time, so we'd request you to quickly wrap up if it's possible.
Sure, it's my final slide. So just about support services, anything from next day service to even an hour's response time, according to the agreement, according to the case level severity. All the data is in our website. You can reach us through email, telephone, whatever you may choose to do, and you get online access to the platform updates and upgrades, which are done completely transparent. That's it. That's my part, and I hope I was okay with timing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amir. When we talk about the cloud today, and everybody is looking at digital transformation using the cloud, it was very interesting while you mentioned your products and services, but also talked about the IT challenges that a lot of companies do face, including latency and as well as data sovereignty. I think a lot of people need to consider what they're looking at in terms of data, and what kind of data do they need, what kind of cloud services, before they actually decide on how to go ahead with digital transformation and data, because some industries are more regulated than the others. So I think that is something that companies do need to consider. So thank you again, Amir, for being on Open Mic.